was the fact that when I was growing up in the early to mid 2000s, my dad only worked one job and my mom was a stay-at-home mom for 90% of my life. And we were really lucky, and my dad made about $100K at his job, and that was enough to support a family of 4 on 7 acres of land plus build our own house. And now that I'm an adult living on my own, I'm single, I have no kids, I can barely even afford rent. Their mortgage payment was $790. I make 60% of what my dad made in the early 2000s, and he was supporting a family of 4 on his solo salary of $100K, and I can't even support myself on a salary of just under $60K. Like, make it make sense.
Inflation is out of control. Cost of living has gone up. Young people are priced out of the housing market. In my country, Australia, in 1984, the average home cost was $64,000. The average annual income was $19,000, and the average mortgage was $42,000. When you bought a house, it was roughly 3 times your annual income. In 2023, the average home cost $920,000, the average annual income is $90,000, and the average mortgage is $576,000. Now, when you buy a house, it is roughly 9 times your annual income. House prices have skyrocketed and wages have not kept up. Now, you might think that this is just economics, that this doesn't affect the dating market, but you would be mistaken. The more expensive a society is to live in, the more women have to work. Families cannot survive on one income. In order for lots of women to survive in the corporate world with high-stress jobs, they've had to cultivate and develop their masculinity. They have to be tough, be ambitious, be disagreeable. That makes them more successful in the workplace. Financially, that's a good plan, but it has a disastrous effect on her femininity. How is she going to relax and be soft and nurturing and feminine when she needs to turn up to her 9-to-5 job every day and be a boss bitch? Our increased cost of living has caused more and more women to lose contact with their own femininity. It's so sad. It's depressing. You want to see how ugly it is when women lose touch with their femininity? You want to see what that looks like?
Oh my God, guys, I'm freaking out. What am I gonna do? Just kidding, I already scheduled the appointment.
This sort of attitude would have been impossible back in the day when women were still in touch with their femininity. But now, laughing about having an abortion, posting it on social media, drinking alcohol, that is now possible with this new generation of modern women because they've abandoned their own womanhood. They're not in touch with any motherly or feminine instincts. This has a disastrous effect on the dating market because when women lose contact with their femininity, it makes men lose attraction to them.
What is the main challenge of dating Australian women nowadays?
Definitely women are hyper masculine, you know, they're very independent, they're in control, they want to control everything. And I think what we kind of miss with men is that it takes a lot of courage and a lot of bravery to actually go up to a woman and ask her to go on a date, you know? And there's that fear of rejection, and no one wants to get rejected, but these guys are out there, they're taking a hit, and they're coming up to these women that aren't feminine, they're not playful, they're defensive, they're aggressive, and then the women are complaining about, you know, well, why don't men approach me? And it's like, well, that's why.
She's absolutely right. And it's one of the reasons why more people are single now than ever before. Looking at these statistics, 63% of men in their 20s are single. And that's up from just 51% a few years ago. And this is before inflation really took off. We're 2 years on now. The numbers are probably even higher. Having 2/3 of young men single, that's insane. That's not normal. Ask your grandfather what it was like back in his time. And he'll tell you that for him and all of his friends, it was weird if you reached your mid-20s and you weren't already married and about to have kids. Back then, single men were the minority, but in the modern era, lots of men are just dropping out. They're looking at the current crop of women who are working like crazy, trying to keep up with the cost of living. They've got aggressive, masculine personalities, crazy expectations and standards, absolutely no femininity. And so the men are looking at this and thinking, no, that's just not worth it. I want a girlfriend. I want companionship, but she has to be nice. She has to improve and add to my life. She has to be feminine, and I'm just not meeting many women like that. And it seems like every year, collectively, women are getting less feminine, less pleasant to be around. And yet, at the same time, women's expectations for what they deserve, what they're entitled to, just goes up and up and up. So what do we call this phenomenon when women are getting worse, but their expectations are getting higher? It's called hoeflation.
A lot of guys are socially awkward.
I think you're a bit ignorant to like the average guy's experience. Consider this, right? The average guy today, his granddad had to put in a quarter of the work to get the kind of woman that is 4 times as amazing as the woman he's attracted.
Oh,
to.
you're talking about
His grandmother was an amazing woman and a very, very feminine, natural woman, and his granddad really didn't have to do the kind of work he has to do right now as a young man in the Western world.
So you're talking about hoeflation.
Yes, it's hoeflation.
Hoeflation. So modern men have to work 5 times harder than their grandfathers did for women 20 times worse than what their grandmothers were.
To keep using economic terminology, we are in a bubble right now where the value of women is massively inflated. Imagine a scenario where housing prices just crashed. All the homes lost their value, but you've got these stubborn homeowners who are putting their houses on the market but stubbornly refusing to drop the price. And so there's no interest, they get no offers. The house just isn't worth what they're expecting somebody to pay for it, so the houses just sit there empty, unoccupied. That's how a lot of modern women are, with an overinflated sense of their own value. But no one's interested. No one's going to pay that price. No one's going to meet those expectations. They'd rather just stay single. So it would seem obvious from a woman's perspective that the most sensible thing to do would be to consult reality. Look at the market. Look at where you sit in the grand scheme of things and ask yourself, am I actually this valuable? Am I pricing myself too high? Could that be why I'm still single? Do men actually find me as attractive and as desirable as I think that they do? Because if not, maybe I need to lower my standards or just improve myself, offer a better product. I need to try and meet the market. That would be sensible, but that's not what women are doing.
You know what just gives me like a little tickle, a little giggle? When women are all in this like, oh, you can't get a man because you're not in your feminine energy. Like, you're too in your masculine energy. The fuck did you think? What did you... Excuse me? Because I'm out here thinking women, we're the most educated group in society. We're out here making the most money. We pay our bills on time, and most of us are still shaving our legs. I mean, the fact that it is like a societal task for me to aesthetically fix myself for no damn reason, which takes hours upon hours, and yet I have to be at the same job the men are at for the same hours that they are at it, making the same amount of money they do, and I still have to pop a child out of my pussy, feed that child, raise that child, ensure that they are a normal functioning human being, because when have we ever seen a man do that on his own? I can't get into all that. I don't need, like, what is the contribution that I'm looking for? At what point, on top of all that, am I supposed to adjust my energy to attract a man? They don't know anything. They don't do anything. They use one product for an entire shower. I mean, think about just that. It's not giving what it said it's supposed to give. So my energy can be however the hell it wants. You do something about it. I'm cool over here. I'm cool.
The dating market is crashing because women's expectations are too high. They have an inflated sense of their own value. Any woman who thinks that she's a queen and she's entitled to be treated like a goddess while giving nothing back simply because she is a woman is delusional and sexist. How did women's expectations get so out of control? What is the explanation behind their delusion? It's partly because many modern women don't understand that unlike everything else, relationships are not magically going to get better over time. Expecting constant improvement has become the norm in so many areas of our lives. Like a phone in 1980, which again isn't as good as a phone in the year 2024. Technology keeps improving, and us as consumers, we're willing to pay for it because the product is better. Quite frankly, the same thing goes for housing. Like, yeah, it sucks that young people can't afford a house like their grandfather could back in 1950. But part of the reason for that is because houses are better now. They're better designed, they're larger, they have more windows, they're built from higher quality materials. Yes, there is inflation, and yes, wage growth has been slow. But at the the same time, everything that we buy now is better. It keeps improving and we pay more because the value is more. But this new generation of modern women seem to expect that their relationship experience should improve at the same rate as technology. In 1980, phones could call people. That's it. But her phone in 2024 can call, can text, can tell her the time, can browse the internet, can wake her up in the morning. It can do all these incredible things, too many to name. And so her mindset is like, well, my phone is so much better than it used to be. Why can't my boyfriend be the same way? Husbands, back in the day, they used to provide money and spank the children, and that's it. But if the quality of relationships should improve at the same rate as technology, then husbands should be able to provide money, but also do half of the chores, socialize with their friends, provide emotional support, do half the parenting, be a handyman, be a therapist, and of course, plan endless romantic gestures to show her that she is still a queen. And all of this while simultaneously he's to be a punching bag, to listen to daily tirades about the patriarchy and how privileged he is as a man. The expectations for men in relationships started here, but now it's up here and it just keeps on going higher. And yet, at the same time, expectations for women just keeps going lower and lower. That's the inflation that I'm talking about, women overvaluing themselves. This era where all women are queens and it's a man's job to just endlessly serve her and cater to her whims has got to end. It's not sustainable. If this trend continues, no children will be born. There'll be no more families. Men will just simply opt out. Having a family, raising children is just such an essential part of the human experience. I urge women, please come back to reality. Being a woman does not make you special. It does not make you unique. It does not make you incredible. You're not better than a man. You want a relationship that is healthy and fulfilling? Well, 50% of that is on you. Relationships work if you put in the work. You want him to serve you, then you have to serve him as well. And if feminism was truly about equality, then everything I'm saying right now should be good news. That's all I'm talking about here is men and women putting in equal effort. But I really want to spend a bit more time talking about how relationships worked back in your grandparents' day, where the man worked and the woman stayed at home, because I'm actually not a believer that we should go back to that era. I don't think those are like the good old days. I think that some of the progress that we've made in the expectations of relationships are a really positive thing. So where do I think the optimal line is and when has it gone too far? So one of the things that I really like about the old school style of relationships is that the contribution did seem equal and there was a recognition of men and women having different roles based on the different strengths. So a man was out in the business world doing masculine ambition, kind of stuff, and he was providing the money, right? Like that's important. That's an essential part of a household functioning. But he can't just come home to an empty house with no furniture, nothing's been cleaned, nothing's been cooked. And so a woman is focusing more on her feminine strengths and she's contributing 50%. I liked that because to me, it seems that there is respect for each other. He's got his domain and she's got her domain. There was some dignity in embracing those gender differences. And it seems like everybody had very clear expectations about what was going to be required of them. And as such, divorce rates were quite low. Families stayed together. And I think when people look at just the shit show that is the modern dating market and how relationships are and the high divorce rates, they can feel nostalgic for how things were back in the day. And I can understand that. It's not personally where I go, but like, I get it. A move back more in that direction is probably a very positive thing. But for me, I'm just greedy. You know what I mean? Like, I think that we can do even better. I don't think that we have to be like men and women are identical. They're the same. There's no difference. And I don't think we need to be like men and women are so different. They can never do each other's jobs. I'm like, God, like, where is the sensible middle ground? Yeah, we might have come out of a pretty archaic system of running a household and a relationship. But the modern way, which just completely ignores biology, seems like some communist dystopian nightmare. It's awful. Like, no, men and women are different. Can we just acknowledge that and then make some sensible choices? The part that probably irks me the most is the restrictions that the old way of doing things had on individual freedom. I'm not saying they didn't work the way it was for many, many people, but I'm always interested in the experience of people who don't fit into the norm and what we can do to accommodate them as they try and find their individuality. So I do sincerely believe that there will be women out there whose best version of their life will involve a certain amount of achievement, of ambition, of working. I 100% don't believe that like all women should be in the kitchen and only raising children. No, there will be some women who want to go out into the world and explore and express themselves. And I want our culture to be able to accommodate that for those individuals. Do I think that that's the majority of women? No. From my conversations, hundreds of conversations with women, finding out about their deepest desires, what I've heard over and over again is a pressure that they feel to be that kind of woman, whereas many of them would actually prefer to live like a softer life. But that doesn't mean that I don't think that those individuals should be catered to. So I think that there's progress in our culture that actually does allow for those women, rare as they may be, those individual women to go and kick butt if that's what they want to do. And the same goes for the flip side. If you guys have seen the Ron Howard documentary, it's actually made by her daughter, Bryce Dallas Howard, called Dads. I think it might have been on Amazon. Regardless, really good documentary, but it showcased some incredible fathers whose primary purpose in life was parenting, was raising the children. They were doing it in a masculine way, and they were kicking butt. I got emotional watching it, but it was beautiful to see men express their masculinity in a way that, 70 years ago wouldn't really have been allowed. Allowing for those individuals to express themselves, that's really, really important to me. But of course, the danger is that when we open up social expectations for those individuals, there's always going to be an overcorrection. The floodgates are open, everybody pours through, and we need some time to sort of stabilize. This is what I hope that my channel does, is I want to be like rock solid, sensible, rational middle ground, pointing out excesses from the past and from the modern era. To a lot of you guys listening, my perspective here might sound more progressive than you were possibly guessing it was going to be. Like, it would hurt me to think of very capable, intelligent women who could contribute their creativity, their intelligence, their ideas to our society, languishing at home, only doing mother roles. I think that the workforce can be greatly benefited from a feminine perspective. Perhaps not to the degree of saturation that it is right now, but I don't really know to what degree would be optimal. I think we're still trying to find it, and I think that it's wonderful that men are more involved in raising the children. Of all the versions of modern masculinity that we're kind of trying out to see what works, like the feminist ally simp version, the Andrew Tate like alpha bro version, for me, I really hope that the version of masculinity that wins, that's glorified, is the archetype of the father, the involved father who loves his kids. And so while each individual couple is going to be different in what they feel comfortable with and where they exist on the spectrum, I would think that for the majority of people, some kind of arrangement where both parents work, possibly the man working a bit more or at a more stressful job and the woman working in a more people-centered job, part-time, I'm thinking that's probably going to be the arrangement that best fits most people. That way, the woman's identity isn't locked at home in some kind of suburban prison. She has her own life, her own friends, her own achievements, but they're not so overwhelming to her that she's not putting her children and her family first. At the same time, the man gets to express his masculinity and explore the world and explore himself and achieve, but not get so lost in that he doesn't actually get to see his little daughter or son take his first steps. He's an involved father. He turns up to sport games. He reads the books at night. To me, that's what's rational. That's what's sensible. That's the middle ground. I'm not saying that this is what's going to apply and work for you as an individual. If you don't fit into what I just described, that's absolutely fine. I want you to have the freedom to express your relationship however you want. This is more my guess for what most people would be well suited to.